What's going on, Shield Brothers and Shield Maidens? This is True for Shield's Rest, and today I want to talk about no initiative in Daggerheart. So let's get into it. Alright, so the reason why we want to talk about no initiative in Daggerheart is because it's such a difficult skill to acquire and it takes so much time, but it's actually not that bad, and if you have these kind of helpful tips and tricks that I want to give you today, it should make your experience a little bit less jarring and hopefully expedite some of these things for you a little bit more than what I had when I started doing this. Because let's face it, no initiative is such a chaotic situation, all right? Because there's no structure all of a sudden, and now anybody can just go whenever. Feels like a lot, but really it's actually not too bad. And that's why I want to talk about this, because it's actually not as bad as a lot of people are going to think it is, okay? So it's actually a lot more fun, and it's going to free you up as a GM, as a player. It is going to be so freeing for you as an individual in your role play. But that's why we want to talk about that today, and that is also why I want to bring in this scenario. I want to describe a scene to you so that hopefully you can kind of get a idea of what I'm talking about before we even actually start talking about it. And then I want to describe to you how it actually works, how you as a player fit into things, or if you're the GM, how you as a GM fit into things, and what you can do as a GM to work with certain types of players, certain shy individuals or certain overly energetic individuals. So you should have an easier time being able to mitigate down the energy and be able to bring up the individual that's shy and bring them all into it as a team rather than individuals. So let's start off with the scene. So you and I are walking through the woods. We have to get to the town on the other end of this woods, and it is getting dark out. It is legitimately getting to the point where it's pitch black, but we're not quite there yet. So we're trying to get to the woods before that happens. So we're having to move a little bit faster than we otherwise would, especially in these woods where we've heard about some bandits, where we've heard about some bear attacks, some wolf attacks, some things that go on in these woods, and it's not really that safe. So clearly, we want to get to that town as fast as we can. So we're not necessarily running through the woods, but we're also not taking our time. It's not a stroll through this thing, right? So we're moving. We're starting to hear some stuff, some rustling in the bushes, some rustling through the trees, making us paranoid. The odd squirrel jumps out, that kind of thing. We're starting to get a little bit more paranoid than we should. So we're starting to kind of get jumpy, right? So as we go through these woods, we do hear one particular crack of a branch off to the side, and we stop for a brief moment. And then all of a sudden, an arrow just lands right in front of us, right at our feet, right in front of us, and we look up where it came from, in that direction, and we see a bandit. An individual with a mask over their face, a hood, starting to draw another arrow and get it set into their bow. They haven't quite done it yet. I'm the bard, you're the druid. I decide, you know what? I'm going to hide. I'm going to get the heck out of the way. I don't want to get hit by this thing, so I duck behind one of the trees. You look at me like, what the hell are you doing? And you decide, you know what? Okay, I guess I got to go beast form. So you decide to, let's say, transform into a pouncing predator. Let's go with the old Black Panther situation, right? So you go full on Black Panther, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to go and run up that tree and attack the bandit. The GM tells us that the bandit's at far range. Okay, well, you can only go close range with your movement with that action. But the GM does remind you that you can make an agility roll to go that extra distance up to far range. So, of course you're going to do that, right? You know, you got to get to the guy. So you say, okay, great. The GM comes up with the DC in his head for basically being able to go to far range, and that's going to involve you climbing up the tree, but you're a pouncing predator, so it shouldn't be that difficult. But he's got his DC in mind. You go ahead and roll that agility roll. And let's say that you barely make it, but you roll with fear. Barely make it, roll with fear. Okay, cool. That means the GM decides, you know what? Let's go ahead and say that you do make it to that bandit, and you will get your attack in. That's perfectly fine. However, the bandit's going to go ahead and get a shot off on you first before you reach him. So as you're climbing up the tree, the bandit fires down at you. Actually hits, rolls damage, does a little bit of damage, just major damage, nothing too crazy, but you decide to use your armor and mitigate it down to minor damage. There you go. Now you get to roll your attack for that bandit. You succeed, but you roll with fear again for whatever reason. Your dice are just cursed, who knows? And so basically what happens is you not only get to attack him, do the damage, but now you have basically brought him up and over that limb, and now you guys are careening down to the ground. Obviously, you being on top of the bandit is going to be helpful for you and not so great for that bandit. As you smash him into the ground, his last bit of life leaves him, and you're just kind of having a little bit of fun and playing with your food a little bit, right? So you don't notice the two bandits that come out from the woods off the other side of the road and starting to make their way towards you. I hear them. I'm the bard and I can now see them as I peek around, and I think, you know what? How about I go for an enrapture? Let's enrapture them. Let's see if we can hopefully stop them from doing any damage to you. So I run out there. They're about at close range to me, so I run out there, do the enrapture, and go ahead and capture their attention. You now notice this and realize, oh, I got to get there. So you now start running. So you're coming over, and then you now are able to attack them. You attack one of them, and now seeing my opportunity, I go, okay, cool. But the GM says, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and spend 2 fear and have him interrupt you in the moment. And he attacks me out of nowhere. Basically swiping at me with his dagger. He does actually land the hit. I am only a bard after all. And does a little bit of damage, but that's okay. I can deal with that. I've got a health potion in the bag. We're fine. So I decide to pull out my rapier, and then I stab at him. You've killed your guy. I've killed my guy. And now we're like, okay, great. And then we keep on moving to the town. That's essentially no initiative. Nothing was stated as who goes when. Nothing was stated for that. It doesn't say anything about when you get to go. You just choose what to do. That's how easy this actually is, and that's why I love no initiative, is because it feels chaotic when you talk about it, but when you see it in person, when you actually start utilizing this technique, I'm going to call it, at this point, when you start utilizing this rule, it just makes it so much easier, or the lack thereof when it comes for rules. It just makes it so much easier to deal with, funny enough. It allows for that fluid play to happen. It allows for players to now be focused in on the game. Holy crap, what a concept, you know? When you remove the structure, all of a sudden everyone now has to pay attention in order to get the spotlight at some point, in order to have any sort of action. It's not like before where you could just get up, take the kids to the pool, and then be able to go for a walk afterwards, come back in, you feel good again, get some snacks, grab a drink, and oh, it's just about your turn. That would have taken an hour, you know? And now it's finally about to be your turn? What are you talking about? So that's why I like Daggerheart, is it forces you almost to be at the table. It incentivizes you to be at the table, taking turns, being in front, and trying to do stuff with your party, with your team of players. That's why I like it. As a GM, it is so satisfying because now my players are actually paying attention to the combat. When before they would just get up and go. They'd get up and do random things. They'd sit on their phone, and I'm like, really, guys? Really? This isn't interesting to you? And the answer was no, it wasn't interesting. And I used to think it was just me, like I was just a bad GM. That might be slightly it, but mainly because it was actually the actual combat, the way that everything was structured and how combat took forever to do. And that's partially the player's fault as well, by not knowing their character as well as they should. That's a big thing, which is also another reason why I like Daggerheart, but that's a different video. But as far as combat's concerned, no initiative actually solves a lot of the issues of combat, funny enough. I find it's way more easier to deal with than I actually originally thought. I was turned off of Daggerheart when I first got into this because I didn't fully understand how to utilize no initiative. I didn't really get it. Once I started to understand it, it made a lot more sense. So, let's talk about how it works. This is going to be a quick side of things, really and truly, because how it works is just is. It just is. Like, there's no structure, so nobody knows when they go. So, as a player, you just have to know what you want to do. You want to kill that guy over there? Okay, then how are you going to kill him? You know, like, how are you going to go after that? You just got to know your own goals as a player, and bam, there you go. As a GM, however, it's very helpful for you to be able to give that spotlight out, because that's essentially what this is it's a spotlight of sorts. And it's not necessarily up to you to give that spotlight out, but to start things off, it's helpful if you as a GM give that spotlight out. Because in that moment, you're essentially doing that. So for the scenario with the arrow falling right in front of the players, that kind of starts it off. Because now one of the players is like, I'm going to hide. Great. I love that they're starting to go with like first instinct, get out of the way and get your bearings. One player is like, forget that nonsense. I can see the dude. I'm going after him. Great. They decided to do those things. Perfect. Sometimes you're going to have players that don't know what to do. They're like, I know I want to do a thing, but when do I go? Just say that you want to do a thing. And that's kind of how you have to almost describe it to your players, is that if you want to do something, tell me. In the moment that you think of it, tell me. Don't look at the board. Don't look at how things are situated. Just think about what it is you want to do. And we'll work on how you can get there. You know, is it going to take a couple of actions? Is it going to take a couple of movements? What is this going to look like exactly for you to get there? I will help you with that, you know? So that's what you want to be as the GM, is you want to be the one that's helping them get to point A to point B. That's the entire point. So to that end, obviously understanding that they just need to know what they want to do, and then you just need to know how to help them. That's all it is. You just need to know what your options are as a GM to help your players defeat the baddies. That's really all this is in the end. And that's actually how no initiative works. You have an encounter. There's the bandits. There's your party. Your bandits are going to go after your party. Your party needs to deal with that. Some way, shape, or form. Whether they just choose the run, they can choose the run. That's perfectly fine. Doesn't mean the bandits aren't going to go after them, mind you, okay? But that's their choice. They can totally make that choice. Same goes for if they decide to massacre all the bandits, or if they decide to knock out all the bandits and then go ahead and steal from them and then bring them in, and hopefully there's a reward on them on top of that. There's so many choices that your players can make. They just need to know what it is that they want to do in that moment. It's all it is. It's all it really is in the end, and it's that simplistic, and I love it so much for that reason. So, looking at how you as a player now fit in, you just need to know what you want to do when it comes to these no initiative situations. You need to know what it is you want to do. You need to know what your options are in order for you to be able to do things. What are the domain cards you have? What do those domain cards require of you? Is it hope? Is it stress? Does it give a fear to the GM in some way, shape, or form on top of the fear that you're going to give them for the action? Do you need to get that movement and close the distance? Are you going to use a ranged weapon? Are you going to use a melee weapon? What do you have at your disposal to levy death and destruction upon the evildoers? You know, like that's essentially what this is. So you need to know your options. As a GM, however, like I said, you need to know your options to help your players, but then you also need to know your adversary's options. Now, when it comes to being a GM, it is very helpful to understand what the point of that encounter is, or what the motives and tactics, what the moves are of your adversaries. What are they here for? Are they here to enslave the players? Are they here to steal from them? What do they want exactly? Are they hitmen to kill the players because they've been stirring up trouble for a local lord, and the local lord's like, yeah, go ahead and take care of that nuisance. Just kill them in the woods. You know, what are we talking about exactly? So when you understand your encounters, it's going to better inform you on how your adversaries are going to move. And then as a GM, you're there to enhance the story further with your adversary's actions. So bringing those two bandits out of the woods now furthers the encounter that much more. And now we're starting to get an idea that there's might be more here, or that there might be more on the way to try and pick up the players later on, or follow them into the town, or what have you. There's a lot of ways that you can go about this that prolong some of that encounter, that might create an encounter later on, all that good stuff. But in the no initiative side of things, that's really all it takes, is to understand what your adversaries would do. So, love that. Now, when it comes to no initiative, you're going to have a lot of different types of players, and that is perfectly fine. Love all the different types of players out there. You're going to have your shy individuals that are low energy, that are just like Wednesday. You know, like we're just talking about the Addams family. Wednesday is there at your table. Sometimes you have that. Other times you're going to have the most energetic individuals that absolutely are so ready to lop the head off of the next thing that comes into their sight. You know, like they're going to be so death hungry. They're going to just be bloodlusted, trying to kill something. They're like waiting for a combat to happen. Perfectly fine. Love every part of that spectrum. But how do you get Wednesday Addams to participate by comparison to the overly energetic, bloodthirsty, I don't know, insert whatever class here individual that is ready to massacre at a moment's notice, like just ready to go? How do you deal with that? So the main thing that I do when it comes to dealing with the shy individuals, when talking about handing out the spotlight, I hand the spotlight to them first. I have the adversaries attack them first. Just saying. Because what it does is now I can go, okay, you just got hit with an arrow. What are you doing in response? Like, what are you going to do right now? How are you going to go about this? You just got hit. Now you're kind of bringing that out of them. And it allows the other players to kind of help that person out because the focus is on them right now. Which means that individual with the high energy now has to redirect that energy towards the shy person to help them understand what's going on, to maybe give them some ideas of what they could do. And now you're getting this team aspect out of this, and you're trying to get this shy person to be a little bit less shy, and you're trying to get this energetic person to be a little bit less about them and what they know that they can do. That's the best part about that. So now you're starting to get this nice cohesion being built between the party and yourself. Love that to death, but that's the best way to deal with shy individuals and energetic individuals. The energetic people are going to be able to adapt. They're flexible people. They know what they want to do, and they can adjust as the encounter goes on, as things change on that battlefield. The shy individuals are going to take their time. Sometimes the shy individuals are actually incredibly intelligent and are really quick-witted. They just aren't the first one to speak up. And sometimes that's all it is. That's all it is. And so you sometimes need to give that immediately to them. Other times, don't do it all the time, mind you. Just because you have a shy individual doesn't mean you just keep hitting them. You do it at first to try and get them to understand it and prep for that, so that way next time they're a little bit, maybe a little bit more ready for the encounter. But now they get to see in the battlefield where they fit in. Especially if they've chosen, let's say, a wizard or a sorcerer or some sort of individual sitting in the back, that ranger in the back. Maybe they're that. Maybe they become the tactician for the group, allowing the bloodthirsty bloodhound to go after the individuals first and saying, you know what, I want you there, and then they start giving out commands. That's the most beautiful thing to witness, when you start seeing the shy person start commanding the team. Love that to death. It's the best thing on earth, okay? Well, one of them. But honestly, that is the greatest part about being a GM, is when you can see your players coming together as a team, but also working on their weaknesses together. Helping each other with their strengths to help somebody else's weakness. Love that. Now, as far as the passage of time is concerned, I know we all know D&D's 6 seconds equals 1 round, 10 rounds equals 1 minute. I think we all know that by now. However, it gets a little bit more wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey here in Daggerheart, so it's a little bit different. But basically, you want to think of it like a movie in that aspect, where it's not really about the passage of time. It's more about what is actually happening. And so if you're kind of concerned for your own player standpoint, your players can basically think of it as almost the way that you'd almost be holding an attack, or you're just constantly fighting, even though you've only gotten one hit in. But it shows that there's a bit more of a combat to this, and that things are happening. It's just you're not always going to get that initial strike, that absolute hit that's just going to draw blood kind of situation. It's not always going to be that. Something from Genesis, if you know the Genesis system at all, it's the same way, where it's basically like, just because I shoot in Star Wars one time and I get one hit, doesn't mean you're only doing one shot, one hit kind of situation. You're laying down fire against these individuals, and then basically it's a spray of blaster bolts basically that are going into the enemy or into their general direction. And that's essentially what you can do here with Daggerheart, which is, just because you have a ranger in the back, they're not just doing one arrow at a time and it's one shot and that's it. They could be leveling several arrows in that, general direction. It's just they're only getting one hit in, and that's really all it is when they do actually roll for their action. Same goes for like when somebody's engaged in melee combat. They are constantly slashing and parrying and fighting, getting after it. It's just every now and again do they actually draw blood. And that's really all that is. So as far as tracking the time though, I would say as a GM, it's kind of left up to your best judgment as far as what amount of time has actually passed, rather than actually counting the blow by blow, the play by play, and the seconds by seconds kind of situation. I would get away from that, and I would think of it more thematically. And as a GM, I just think about it more realistically, like how much time would have passed within this combat. But that's at least how I think of the time passing. It's not that it's really passing second by second, but that it's pretty much passing in a more fluid sort of way, and not so much with our stopwatch, waiting, watching the time and going, okay, yep, that's been a minute, great. Like it's not about that. But that's what no initiative can do for you at your table with your players. It can create such a cohesion because of the fact that it requires it almost, but it's also how you as a GM go about that. And as a player, if you're a player, it's how you are a part of that team. It's how you contribute to the actual individuals that are playing it, but also their characters, how you contribute to their characters through yours. And that is the best part about this, and why I love Daggerheart so much, but mainly why I love no initiative, because no initiative really brings that out. And you're going to find that this is going to keep your table focused in on what is going on, focused in on the story, on the combat, who's doing what, when somebody gets a critical, when somebody fails with fear, oh no, oh my, what could happen? Love that to death. That's exactly what we want to see, and exactly what we have needed in our tabletop RPGs. It's so needed to be injected in. And that's why I think Daggerheart is such a great tool to utilize for you and your table. So, if you are new to the channel, we are a group of friends and military members that absolutely love tabletop RPGs. And we believe that no matter what system you enjoy playing, you should have enough content to be able to have an epic game night every night. So if you like Daggerheart, DC-20, Genesis, World of Darkness, even D&D, consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification so you don't miss a single one of our videos. So until the next one, keep that shield wall strong.